Imagine for a moment that the rhythm of your existence simply broke. Every creature on this planet is governed by a heartbeat, a pulse, and a cycle. Since the first single-celled organisms flickered into life in the primordial soup, they have been slaves to the rotation of the Earth, the rising sun, the falling shadows, the cool relief of night. It is the metronome of biology. But what if the metronome stopped? What if the Earth, our spinning marble of blue and green, of ours, finally succumbed to the gravitational tug-of-war it has been playing with the sun for 4 billion years? What if our world became tidally locked? In this new reality, the concept of a day is no longer a measure of time, but a fixed coordinate on a map. One half of our world is cursed with an eternal blistering noon, a sun that never sets, hanging like a vengeful eye in the centre of the sky. The other half is swallowed by a permanent, bone-chilling midnight where the stars are the only witnesses to a frozen wasteland. Between these two deaths lies a thin, circular sliver of twilight, a world where the sun is forever sinking, yet never gone. We think of Earth as a dynamic, living machine, but we are only alive because we are in constant motion. To stop spinning is to lose our equilibrium. It is the end of the world as a home, and its rebirth as a cosmic monument to stillness. This isn't just a change in weather. It is a fundamental shattering of the human psyche. Welcome to the end of the cycle. Welcome to the eternal day. To understand how we get here, we have to look at the moon. The moon is already tidally locked to us. It shows us the same face every single night because its rotational period matches its orbital period. This isn't a coincidence. It's the result of tidal friction. Gravity isn't just a tether, it's a sculptor. The Earth's gravity creates bulges in the moon's crust, and the energy lost in moving those bulges slowed the moon's spin until it locked into place. The sun is doing the exact same thing to Earth. Right now, the sun is ever so slightly breaking our rotation. Our days are getting longer by about 1.8 milliseconds every century. Usually the sun would die before it could stop us completely, but in our what-if scenario, the process has accelerated. The Earth has finally settled into its final static embrace with its star. What happens to the physics of a world that stops turning? First, we lose the Coriolis effect. On a spinning Earth, the rotation deflects winds, creating the swirling hurricanes and trade winds that distribute heat around the globe. Without rotation, the atmospheric engine breaks. Heat from the day side would rise in a massive permanent updraft, rushing toward the night side to fill the vacuum of the cold. We are talking about supersonic global winds. The atmosphere would become a conveyor belt of thermal extremes. On the day side, the oceans at the subsolar point, the spot directly beneath the sun, would boil, not into a sudden explosion, but into a relentless, thick shroud of steam. This creates a cloud shield. Ironically, this shield might reflect enough sunlight to keep the surface from turning into molten glass, but it would turn the hemisphere into a pressurized, blindingly white sauna. Meanwhile, on the night side, the opposite horror unfolds. Without the sun to provide energy, the temperature would plummet toward absolute zero. The water wouldn't just freeze, the very air would begin to collapse. Carbon dioxide would snow out of the sky. In a total collapse, the oxygen and nitrogen we breathe would turn to liquid and then solid ice, coating the dark half of the world in a frozen atmospheric shroud. The only hope for life is the Terminator line, the twilight zone. This is the narrow ring between the inferno and the abyss. Here, the sun sits eternally on the horizon. The sky is a permanent sunset of bruised purples and deep oranges. But even this Goldilocks strip is a place of chaos. The pressure difference between the two hemispheres would funnel those global winds through this corridor. To live in the twilight is to live in a perpetual freezing hurricane. Geologically, the Earth would begin to change shape. Our planet is currently an oblate spheroid. It bulges at the equator because of the centrifugal force of its spin. If the spin stops, gravity pulls the Earth back into a perfect sphere. This sounds harmless, but it means the oceans would migrate. The water currently piled up at the equator would rush toward the poles, drowning entire continents and leaving the equatorial belt as a high-altitude desert of jagged rock. But let us move away from the boiling seas and the frozen winds. Let us look at the creature caught in the middle. You. The human brain is an evolutionary masterpiece designed for a world of circadian rhythms. Inside your hypothalamus sits the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN, your internal master clock. It thrives on the 24-hour cycle. It regulates your melatonin, your cortisol, your digestion, and your very sense of self. What happens to a mind that no longer has a tomorrow? In a world of eternal light or eternal dark, the biological tether is cut. Studies on cave explorers who lose track of time show that the human body eventually drifts into a free-running cycle, usually expanding to 25 or 26 hours. But without the sun to reset the clock every morning, we would succumb to total circadian dysrhythmia. Your body would no longer know when to heal, when to sleep, or when to remain alert. Depression, cognitive decline, and the total breakdown of the immune system would follow. We are biologically hardwired to need the dark to process our light. But the horror is deeper than biology. It's philosophical. Our entire language, our entire perception of existence, is built on the concept of sequential time: yesterday, today, tomorrow. These words are meaningless on a tidally locked Earth. If the sun never moves, time becomes spatial. You don't wait for the evening, you travel to the evening. If you want darkness, you drive east. If you want light, you drive west. This creates a terrifying psychological stasis. Human consciousness is built on the forward tilt, the idea that we are moving towards something. We survive the hardships of the day because we know the night is coming. We endure the winter because we know the spring is inevitable. On a locked Earth, the now is forever. The existential dread of a sun that never moves would be like living inside a photograph. It is a world without a heartbeat. Consider the twilight dwellers. If humanity survived in the Terminator zone, we would be a species living in a state of permanent mourning. A perpetual sunset is beautiful for 20 minutes, but a perpetual sunset for 10,000 years. The psychological weight of that amber light, never fading, never brightening, would induce a unique form of cosmic melancholy. We would become a liminal species, living in the cracks between two deaths. And then we would also lose our connection to the heavens. On the day side, the stars are gone. Hidden by the glare of the eternal sun, the universe disappears. Those humans would grow up believing they are truly alone, trapped in a white void. On the night side, the stars are always there, but they are cold and indifferent, hanging over a world where no one can breathe. Our ancestors looked at the stars and saw gods, navigation, and destiny. A tidally locked Earth strips us of our cosmic context. We would no longer be travellers through space, we would be settlers in a tomb. The dark forest of the universe becomes even darker when you realise that your world is no longer a spaceship, but a stationary target, pinned under the glare of a single unblinking star. This brings us to the staring eye paradox. In many ancient cultures, the sun was a deity, but a deity that stays in one place, never sleeping, becomes a tyrant. The sun becomes a cosmic jailer. We would likely develop heliophobia, a deep ancestral fear of the light. Our biology, which evolved to crave the sun, would learn to loathe it. We would retreat into the earth, becoming a subterranean species, hiding from the one-way god that boils our oceans and freezes our air. Is this the fate of most life in the universe? Most stars in our galaxy are red dwarfs. Because they are smaller and cooler, their habitable zone is much closer to the star, and any planet in that zone is almost certainly tidally locked. If life is common in the universe, it likely doesn't live like us. It lives in the shadows of the Terminator. It lives in the eternal gale. It lives without the concept of a Wednesday or a weekend. We are the outliers. Our spinning world is the cosmic rarity. We often fear the end of the world coming from a stray asteroid or a nuclear flash, but the most unsettling end is the one that happens in total silence. The slow, grinding halt of the world's gears. Imagine standing on the edge of the twilight zone. To your left, a wall of darkness where the air itself has turned to ice. To your right, a blinding, white-hot haze of steam and fire. And there you are, standing in the perpetual orange glow of a sun that refused to leave. You look at your watch, but the seconds feel hollow. You're no longer part of a cycle. You're a glitch in a static universe. We define ourselves by change. Our emotions, our history, and our very selves are in a state of constant flux. If the Earth stops turning, we are forced to confront the most terrifying question of all. Who are we when the tomorrow disappears? If we can no longer measure our lives by the setting of the sun, do our lives still have a narrative? Or do we just become another geological feature of a world that has finally given up? The universe is a place of motion, from the spinning of subatomic particles to the rotation of galaxies. Everything dances. To be tidally locked is to be kicked off the dance floor. It is to be a spectator in your own extinction. But perhaps there is a strange peace in the stillness, a world without the pressure of time, a world where you don't have to beat the clock because the clock has been smashed. Would we find a new way to be human, or would we simply wither away like a plant moved into a dark closet? I want you to think about the next time you see a sunset. Watch that golden orb dip below the horizon, feel the temperature drop, smell the night air. Realize that this simple, mundane event is the only reason your mind functions. The goodbye of the sun is the most important gift we have. What would you miss the most in a world of eternal light? The stars, the cool of the evening, or the simple, quiet comfort of knowing that no matter how bad today was, it has to end? Lay your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss the philosophy of the eternal day. If you found this journey into the static cosmos thought-provoking, subscribe and join our collective of curious minds. I am 10 Minute Cosmos. Follow for more and keep spinning.